Leeds-born Leonora Cohen's life was one of bold action and relentless determination. By her own admission, a nervous woman, she would even act as a bodyguard for Emmeline Pankhurst, the British political activist who organised the suffragette movement and helped women win the right to vote. On the 1st of February 1913, suffragette Leonora Cohen carried out an act for which she would gain notoriety. Falling in behind a group of visiting children, she gained access to the crown jewels, on display in the Tower of London. Moments later, she flung an iron bar into the case containing the insignia of the Order of Merit. Around the bar was a message calling for women's voting rights. Leonora was arrested. News of the Tower Suffragette spread quickly. Leonora's life story is one of resilience, defiance and unshakable belief in the power of change. She was born Leonora Throp in Hunslet in Leeds in 1873. Her paternal grandfather, John Throp, ran a family stonemason business in the city. This rather forlorn-looking statue on Woodhouse Moor of former Leeds Lord Mayor Henry Rowland Marsden is one of his works. It originally stood proudly at the junction of Albion Street and Woodhouse Lane in the city. John Throp was a sculptor and artist of note. His father William was also a stone carver. His three sons went on to join him in the business, including Leonora's father, Canova, named after the Italian sculptor Antonio Canova. Canova Throp's work adorned the Royal Exchange building in Leeds, which used to stand at the corner of Boar Lane and Park Row. The decorative work included life-size statues of Sir Walter Raleigh, Christopher Columbus, Sebastian Cabot, and Sir Thomas Gresham with the Charter of the Royal Exchange in London. The Royal Exchange building was demolished in the 1960s, but other examples of John Throp and Sons' work still exist, including Athenaeum House on the Hedgerow. The three stone statues represent painting, music and poetry. By an odd coincidence, the Leeds Women's Suffrage Society, reformed in 1890 by Isabella Ford, had their office in this building. Canova Throp married Irish-born Jane Lamy in Belfast in 1870. On the 1871 census night, they were living at 46 Purton Street in Hunslet. Number 46 is the third door from the right in this photo from 1964. The house has since been demolished, and the M621 now runs across where the house used to stand. On the 15th of June 1873, Leonora was born. She was baptised here at St Luke's in Holbeck on the 9th of August 1874. The church had only recently been constructed. Occupations listed by the parents of children in the baptism register in mid-1874 are an intriguing mix, including three people who describe their job as model making. Canova gives his occupation as sculptor. Leonora was joined by two younger brothers, John in 1875 and Francis in 1876. The growing family moved first to an address close by, at 38 Chetwynd Street in Hunslet, and then further afield to 3 Finsbury Street in Woodhouse. Number 3 is second from the left corner of this photo. Leonora's father was developing his reputation as an artist and sculptor, exhibiting his work at the Liverpool Autumn Exhibition in 1877. Tragically, his life was cut short. He died in 1879 after developing TB. This enormous setback, and the way her mother dealt with it, would influence Leonora for life. Her widowed mother was left to raise the 3 children alone. She set up home at 12 Blundell Terrace in Woodhouse and worked as a seamstress to provide for the family. It was obvious to Leonora that her mother had few rights. In an interview late in life, Leonora said, "Life was hard. My mother would say, 'Leonora, if only we women had a say in things.' But we hadn't. a drunken lout of a man had a vote simply because he was a male. I vowed I'd try to change things. By 1891, the family had moved across the city and were living at 1 Bridgefield Terrace in Cross Green. Leonora was now an apprentice dress milliner. Her mother is a dressmaker. Her brother John is an apprentice hydraulic engineer. Her youngest brother Francis is still at school. It was also in 1891 that Leonora embraced a vegetarian lifestyle that continued throughout her life. It is possible Leonora met her future husband Henry Cohen when she was working as a millinery buyer. Some reports say they had known each other from childhood, though there was a 6-year gap in ages. Henry was employed as an assistant in his father's jewellery business on Lower Hedgerow, Leeds. His father, Abraham Cohen, was a Jewish immigrant from Warsaw. Whilst Leonora was working in Bridlington in 1900, she and Henry were married. It seems both families were unhappy with the couple's attachment. In a move which maybe reflected her determined character, it appears the family's wishes were ignored. The couple married and no parents were present at the wedding. Soon after the marriage, the couple returned to Leeds and set up home here at 52 Brownhill Crescent in Hare Hills. In the 1901 census, Henry describes himself as a watchmaker. The couple's first child, Rosetta, was born on the 8th of November 1900 at Brownhill Crescent. She had the same name as Henry's mother. Sadly, she died a day after her first birthday. On the 14th of November 1902, Leonora gave birth to her son, Reginald. For the next 9 years, the small family enjoyed a peaceful life, as Henry's business as a watchmaker and jeweller flourished. Already aware of the unfairness present in society, events such as the march from Leeds Town Hall to Woodhouse Moor by groups of women carrying placards and banners on Sunday the 28th of July 1908 would crystallise Leonora's opinions. Thousands of people, both men and women, gathered to listen to the various speakers on the day. One of the most famous of the suffragettes to address the crowds was Adela Pankhurst, daughter of Emmeline Pankhurst. In 1909, Leonora joined the Leeds branch of the WSPU, the Women's Social and Political Union, founded by Emmeline Pankhurst in 1903. Leonora became an active member. She would become known to the police and at times had to lie low. Was that the reason she is recorded on the 2nd of April 1911 census, staying near the church in the hamlet of Winthorpe near Skegness with her husband and son? Maybe it was to do with Henry's business as an importer and manufacturer of jewellery. We don't know for sure. What we do know is that when the 1911 Reform Bill ignored women's rights to vote, Leonora responded to the call for militancy. On the 27th of November 1911, alongside fellow suffragettes, she was arrested for the first time and held in Holloway Prison for 7 days. Leonora began to take more and more bold steps, and her family supported her suffrage allegiance. She was arrested for the second time on the 1st of February 1913 at the Tower of London, carrying out the act for which she would gain notoriety. Later that year, Leonora was one of the WSPU representatives to speak with leading politicians, David Lloyd George and Sir Edward Grey. The delegates explained the pay and working conditions that they suffered and their hope that a vote would enable women to challenge the status quo in a democratic manner. Leonora told the politicians that women in the textile industry worked for 3.5 pence an hour, while men were paid 6.5 pence for the same job. She explained that voting women would have power to demand higher wages as men had done. On the 28th of November 1913, Leonora was arrested for the 3rd time when Prime Minister Herbert Asquith visited Leeds. Leonora participated in one of several violent demonstrations, and she was arrested for smashing a window of the Labour Exchange on the corner of Great George Street in Leeds city centre. Following her trial, she was imprisoned at Armley Jail, only to be released a few days later under the notorious Cat and Mouse Act, when her health severely deteriorated whilst on a hunger and thirst strike. Under the Act, Leonora should have been re-imprisoned once her health had improved. Instead, she fled to Harrogate whilst out on licence. Leonora and Henry established a vegetarian boarding house called Pomona here on Harlow Moor Drive in Harrogate. Leonora did not give up her suffragette work, however, and she joined the Harrogate branch of the WSPU, where she was welcomed with open arms. She and Henry also gave refuge to suffragettes, including Lillian Lenton, a passionate and fiery speaker who had eluded the authorities several times. Leeds Arts Club was one of the most advanced centres for modernist thinking, radical thought and experimental art in Britain in the pre-First World War period. From 1908 to 1923, 8 Blenheim Terrace, close to Leeds University, was its home. There is a blue plaque there today. Leonora was by all accounts a talented seamstress, and for the annual Leeds Arts Club ball in 1914, she wore a dress she had created, which was adorned with suffragette symbols and the logo of the Women's Social and Political Union. The dress still exists and is looked after by the Leeds Museum, but it is rarely on display to protect it from damage. The outbreak of World War I brought a temporary cessation to the suffragettes' activities, and Leonora dedicated herself to war work. She moved back from Harrogate to Leeds. However, her activism didn't end there. She joined a trade union and went to work in a munitions factory. Later, she set up a trade union for female munition workers and was a member of the Leeds Food Control Committee. She became the Leeds district organiser of the National Union of General and Municipal Workers and organised workers in their claims, including a 3-day strike. By 1923, Cohen became the first woman president of the Yorkshire Federation of Trades Councils. In 1924, she was appointed a magistrate, one of the first women appointed to the bench, and a JP for 25 years. She even stood for Parliament as a Labour MP. In the 1928 birthday honours, she was awarded an OBE for recognition of her social work. A blue plaque on the wall of 2 Claremont villas, Clarendon Road, reads, "Leading suffragette, famous for smashing a showcase in the Jewel House at the Tower of London, and for her hunger strike at Armley Jail in 1913. It suggests Leonora lived there from 1923, but in fact, she was living there at least a couple of years earlier. In the 1921 census, Leonora and her family are listed there. Henry is described as an importer of watches and clocks, and has a shop at 14 Grand Arcade in Leeds city centre. His son Reginald is a salesman at the shop. Leonora is listed as an organiser of NUGW and works from 79 Great George Street, close to where she was arrested 8 years earlier. There are quite a few links and coincidences in her story. In later life, Leonora lived in and around North Leeds. What is known as the second wave of feminism in the 1960s and 1970s brought the fight of the suffragettes back to public attention. The few remaining were now very old, and in some ways it was the last chance to hear them speak personally of their struggles. Leonora donated her scrapbook, including a large collection of papers and other memorabilia, to Abbey House Museum, and attended the opening of an exhibition called Votes for Women at the museum in 1966, where her dress was placed on display. In 1970, she attended the unveiling of the Suffragette Memorial in London, and in 1973 revisited the scene of her Tower of London action. In 1974, she appeared on the cover of Radio Times to promote the series Shoulder to Shoulder on the history of the women's suffrage movement. She was photographed proudly wearing her Holloway brooch and Hunger Strike medal. In the later stages of her life, Leonora retired to Colwyn Bay in North Wales. At the ripe old age of 105, she passed away on the 3rd of September 1978 in a vegetarian nursing home called Norwood on the Abergele Road, Colwyn Bay. It was a life well lived, a story of resilience, defiance, and unshakable belief in the power of change. I hope you've enjoyed this look at Leonora Cohen's life. Please subscribe and give the video a like. Check out the other Leeds Local History videos on the Geography Juice channel. Thank you for watching.